It's 4:30, so we'll call to order the electronic study meeting of the West Valley City Council. We know that we do have a quorum. There are 4 of us present. Mayor Bigelow has been delayed in the meeting. We expect he'll join us shortly. Councilman Fitisimanu and Councilman Huner excused. Is this the time that we have the announcement on the novel coronavirus?
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/WVCTV.
Thank you. Our first item of business is we have the minutes from the March 2nd, 2021 meeting.
I move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Without any objection, we will consider the minutes approved unanimously. Hearing no objection, they are so approved. We have our next item is to review the agenda for tonight's meeting. Ms. Cottle, see that you've joined us. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight, or does anybody on the council have any questions or comments?
There are no changes to the agenda, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any comment or anything we need to review from the council before we move on? Okay, then we move to item 5. We have a couple of resolutions to review for our upcoming business. Resolution 21-36, a memorandum of understanding between West Valley City and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Who is going to brief us on that?
I will, sir.
Thank you.
And actually, I apologize in advance, but I'm actually going to request that this issue and resolution be pulled from next week's schedule simply because there are some errors and some clarification that I need before I feel comfortable bringing it to council.
Okay, so will we just brief it when it reappears on our agenda then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief. We might be done with this meeting before we see Mayor Bigelow. We hurry along. So we have a resolution 2137, a memorandum of understanding between West Valley City and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Let's Chief again.
Yes, thank you. This is a memorandum of understanding with one of our incredible relationships that we have with our federal task forces. This is with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and the Joint Terrorism Task Force is a task force that I do have a detective assigned to because of some of the potential points of interest that we have in our city. I think it's important to have a detective assigned to this task force so they are able to have that higher level of security clearance, and they're able to have firsthand knowledge of some of the potential issues that may or may not be coming through our city. So I do have a detective assigned to that task force. This is coming before you today simply because the last MOU that we had with him expired and it was time for renewal. This MOU is renewed with them every 3 years, and we've been a part of this task force I would say for at least 15 years.
Okay.
Actually longer than that. It's been since the Olympics. So almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. So this is a continuation of that. It's worked for us. It's recommended that we continue with this relationship. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Any questions that anybody has for Chief Jacobs, or any comment on the proposed memorandum of understanding? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Looks like we have some consent agenda items for next week. Resolutions 21-38, 21-39, 21-40, 21-41. The first three are easement purchases along 2700 West for that continuing project. The last one is delay agreement on 5400 South. Anything that we need to know about this, or anyone to speak to these today, Mr. Kyle?
Thanks, sir. The first three are just like the series of ones you've been seeing on 27th West construction project. The fourth one, though, is a little bit unusual in that it's a delay agreement. It involves a small amount of money. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have Russ get up and just give you the detail on what's going on with this one, or Russ's designee if Dan's out there, or whoever the most knowledgeable is on this.
Not necessarily the most knowledgeable, but I'll give it a shot here. So this is on 5400 West and 5400 South and 6831 West. So the code would require installation of curb, gutter, and sidewalk with the development that's going in out there, but it's we have no curb, gutter, and sidewalk on that street. Anywhere west of Mountain View corridor. So we're just proposing that they be given a delay agreement to install those improvements at a later time.
Russ, would we anticipate that future development along that street would have curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
Yeah, I mean, our city code requires curb, gutter, and sidewalk on every road.
So at some point in the future, when there's more development out there, we would anticipate calling this and requiring it then?
Yes, that gives us the opportunity to do that. I mean, we have called very few delay agreements due ever, but this would enable us to do that. Yes.
Well, many of them have been in Chesterfield and where there are houses and things like that. This one, I would think that probably future development would bring us curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I don't know if I'm thinking wrong there, but
no, it's very possible with the other development on that street. I mean, it's obviously an arterial street, and as we see more development go in out there, then we could make a continuous design that will make sure that it works for the whole length of the street.
how long is the frontage that that's involved in this delay agreement?
Good question. Just one sec. I don't know that off the top of my head unless it's listed here. It should be on the delay agreement.
It's 400 feet.
Your feet?
Thank you,
400
Councilwoman.
feet of sidewalk and 400 feet of curb and gutter.
Pretty big section of land there. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this or any other resolution on the consent agenda? Okay, then moving right along, I bet this next one is yours too, Mr. Willardson. We'll go to communications. We have the street lighting fee.
Yes, it is. Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay. Should be seeing that now. It says street lighting.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we wanted to give you a little update on our current condition of our street lighting system and make a proposal to you for you to consider. Some of you will recall, let's see if I can get, there we go. In 2009, we purchased the street lighting system from Rocky Mountain Power. At the time, we were leasing all of our street lights from Rocky Mountain Power. They were owned and maintained by the power company. We were paying a little over $1 million a year for that. And we did not feel that that was a fair, I mean, it was a regulated fee that we were paying to the power company, but they had obviously recouped their initial investment for the lights that they installed, and we wanted to reduce our costs. So we purchased the lights from Rocky Mountain Power, and we've been maintaining them ourselves since then. So let me just give you a quick update on where we're at today. We've had a contractor working on converting all of the lamps in our street lights to LED. They're pretty much finished with that project, although we have quite a few areas that aren't working properly and that we're having them come back and correct. And so we're holding the final payment on that. But when that work is all done, all of our streetlights will be converted to LED and save. They'll be reducing our energy costs by about a third. So we have 3 different types of poles in the city. We have 2,843 wooden poles with cobra heads on them. I looked up the life expectancy of a wooden pole, and it goes anywhere from 50 to 80 years. And I don't know that anyone's really we have never seen any of the poles fail in our city, although they were all installed prior to the city's incorporation in 1980. They're not the most beautiful things in the world, but they are, like I said, none of them have failed, so they're fairly sturdy at this point. We do have almost 2,600 what we call town and country style fixtures that were all installed in the mid-90s by Rocky Mountain Power. They're on fiberglass poles that have a typical life expectancy of 20 to 30 years. You can see in the picture on the right there that some of them are, need some maintenance. If you have an old fishing boat in your backyard, like my grandpa used to have, fiberglass would eventually starts to unravel and get kind of fuzzy on the outside, and that's what's happening with some of these poles. In the past, we've been able to paint some of them and cover up all of that that fiberglass that's showing. The biggest issue we have with these poles, though, is that when they were installed, the power lines that feed these lights are just buried directly into the ground. There's no conduit for the energy lines, for the wires that supply the energy. There's no point of power disconnect, so they're wired directly into the power system, and there's no junction boxes. So when we have a wiring problem and some of these lights go out, it's very difficult for us to find them. Because there's really no way to isolate, individual lights or even a group of lights to try and determine where the problem is. So since 2003, all the poles that have been installed have been aluminum poles, and with this what we call an acorn style lamp on top, or fixture on top. And so we have a little over 2,000 of those in the city as well. They're aluminum is, much more durable, and these lights are in good shape. Most of these have been installed by developers or on city projects, so they're not direct buried, and we've required conduits and boxes so we can maintain these a little better. So I want to give you a little quick history on the background of our funding for the street lighting system. Back in the mid-90s, when we asked Rocky Mountain Power to install the town and country lights, the city council chose to raise property taxes to fund that. And as I mentioned, that was a cost of about 1.1 million. Our current budget is $491,000. And that is coming from the general fund to maintain our streetlight system. As far as new construction, a lot of those are going in, as I mentioned, on street lighting project, or excuse me, on road projects that are getting paid for with transportation dollars or being installed by developers at their cost. This is how our current budget is allocated. The biggest share of it is that green pie section that is our labor costs. And the next largest is the materials, lamps, poles, et cetera, the blue area. And then the third large area is the energy cost, and that's the gray pie piece. You can see the pink and the yellowish orange color there. It's only about $31,000. That's all the money that we have for making improvements to our system, installing new lights, or contracting with outside contractors for major underground repairs that we're unable to do with our staff of two, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a minute. So what the result of all that is that we have a large maintenance backlog and a lot of unfunded needs. We have 97 lights currently that are out waiting for repairs. When it's just a lamp burned out, we can repair those quickly, but the underground shorts that those take us a long time. And that's where most of these 97 lights that are out are. So we, as I mentioned, the difficulty identifying and locating the problems with underground wiring. And I've got another slide here I'll show you in just a minute, but we're not really maintaining the fiberglass poles and not painting them to try and extend their life. We're not treating the wooden poles, and we have really no funds for a long-term replacement plan as these poles age and reach their expected life. So these are all of the underground repairs on this heat map that we've conducted or we've completed since 2014. And, you see these, I don't know if you probably can't see my little pointer here, but on the west side of the city, where those large yellow blotches are, those are the areas where we've had the most underground problems, and those are the areas where most of these fiberglass poles and underground wiring are located. But you can see that there are problems throughout the city. But obviously the majority of them are where that direct buried wire is. So what I wanted to present to you was the idea of implementing a street lighting fee. What I'm showing here is a $3 per month fee, or right now we could have the same amount of money available or budget available with a $2 per month fee and keeping the $491,000 that's in the general fund. But a $3 a month fee raises about $1.3 million per year, which if that replaces all of the general fund money, and then we would spend about $800,000 of that on operations and maintenance, and $500,000 every year on major repairs and capital projects. This would be $3 per month. It would be for single family residents, and other businesses would be charged one lighting equivalent residential unit equal to 80 linear feet of street frontage. So for every 80 linear feet of frontage a business has on a street, we would charge them 1 ERU or $3 per month for every 80 linear feet.
Does that mean, Russ,
Go
does
ahead.
that mean they're gonna get more lights in front of their businesses?
So there are a number of streets that don't have any lights at all. And, we would not start charging them until we had installed lights.
Okay,
But the others would not get any additional lights. We would just start charging them as we would for residential areas.
okay, thank you.
So some of the other cities have chosen to fund their street lighting programs with fees, but not all cities have street lighting fees, but here's just a sample. Some of the larger cities in the valley, Sandy, West Jordan, Salt Lake City, and a couple outside of Salt Lake County, but larger cities, Orem and Layton, all have a street lighting fee. So what this would go for, if the council chooses to implement this, would be improved operations and maintenance and also improved capital. But let me just talk about the operations side of it right now. Right now, we only have 2 employees. In our street lighting division, we're proposing to add a 3rd. We have two bucket trucks, one which is really, really old. And we would replace that old one and add an additional truck. So we would have 3 bucket trucks so each employee would have one. Our parts and materials budget, we're proposing to increase up to $250,000. And our small underground repairs that we hire a contractor for would go from $15,000 to $80,000. Right now, we have no budget for blue stakes, and we don't mark. This is kind of not just a budget problem, but we don't know the locations of these direct buried lines. So when someone is working, if Utopia or someone else is installing new, communication lines in this subdivision underground, we can't mark the location of our streetlight wires. So they often get cut, and then, they have to be repaired, and we can't charge those companies for damaging them because we didn't mark them in the first place. So what we're proposing here is we would have a $30,000 budget, and we'd initially have to do an inventory and try and locate those lines as much as we could, but and a $30,000 ongoing budget for blue stakes. Long-term repairs, with a $3 per month fee, we would provide about $500,000 per year. And on the right-hand side here, listed all the things that we could spend that on. So we have a number of lights that are out on Lake Park Boulevard, and we're estimating that it would cost somewhere between $750,000 and $900,000 to basically, we're going to have to install a whole new system there because of the damage to the underground lighting or the wiring, and we don't know where the damages are. And it's more economical just to replace it all and to try and go in and find all the shorts and fix those. We need about 120 new lights to provide street lighting on all the streets that don't have them. That's about a $900,000 cost. It would be about $500,000 to do a pole maintenance program, to paint and treat all of our existing poles, our fiberglass poles and our wooden poles. And then, just a general replacement of these street lights that are, starting to reach their expected lifespan. So obviously $500,000 doesn't do all of this, but it would give us some money to start and be able to chip away at this, but it's certainly not an extravagant program, and will take us a very long time to, over 30 years just to replace the 2,600 fiberglass poles. So I think that is my last slide. Yes, it is. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and try to answer any questions if you have some.
Russ, I have a question or two.
Yes, sir.
So the way this is proposed at either $2 with the continuing general fund budget or $3 without the continuing general fund budget.
Right, that's the same amount of money. So it's a roughly $1.3 million either way. If we either do a $3 million or a $3 per month fee, or we do a $2 a month fee and keep the 491,000 from the general fund. Or, you know, you can do obviously lots of different combinations.
Well, and I'm thing that's nice about fees is if you say, well, this is a fee and it's related to streetlights and all of the money goes to streetlights. Of course, we're doing what we can to maintain and pay for it, install and repair streetlights without having a fee associated with it. But when we're looking at this aging infrastructure, well, maybe we are, but if we are not, why are we not looking at, well, the $3 and the 491,000 that's in the general fund and
We would the grin on our faces would be even wider than with a $2 fee or a $3 fee and without the general fund. I mean, we certainly need the money. I was just trying to present something that was, I mean, we've already, you know, there will already be a $2 per month fee increase for stormwater utility come July. So it's just a matter of what, you know, how much we're willing to do at this point in time.
So it looks like for the regular residential home with one green can and one blue can, we'd be looking at between $25 to $30 for sanitation, stormwater, street light. I mean, we're talking some $300 a year. And if we go back, I guess we were billing for stormwater and garbage with the power company, correct? Before we started doing it ourselves. So we were billing, but they didn't see it coming from us until about 5 or 6 years ago when we decided to do our own billing.
Right.
Now, getting a bill from us approaching $30 or probably up to $30 if they have 2 cans.
Right.
Which kind of a big change over a short period of time from what looked like 0 to being pretty significant, going to 20 and then almost $30. But I remember back in the 90s when West Valley, and no, I wasn't on the council yet, but West Valley made the push to make sure we had street lights in all the residential areas. And it made a big difference. It was amazing that you didn't really know that you missed them until you got them and realized how dark it had been and how much more comfortable and safe you felt having the street lights there. And I guess it's aged and time to do something. So what I'm groping for, I guess, is what is really the best word on this. And maybe other members of the council have an idea of that.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay, so my questions are this. Are street lights more important than sidewalk, curb and gutter? And should we be focusing on sidewalks instead of street lights? Is one question. My second question is, with 3 employees, can we get the $1.3 million worth of work done every single year? Or are we overshooting and we really can only get half of that work done with those 3 employees? And so maybe we don't go as much and we take longer to do it. But I really have a concern with our budget for sidewalk, curb and gutter, where there's kids walking to school without sidewalk, curb and gutter. We upped it $125,000 a couple strategic plans ago, but we haven't increased it anymore, made it a big emphasis. And I feel we need sidewalk, curb and gutter more than we need streetlights. But that's just me.
I think that's a valid point, Karen. What's the cost difference? I mean, sidewalk, curb and gutter seems to me is much more expensive than street lights per linear foot or mile or however we calculate that. Is it twice as expensive, 10 times as expensive?
And how long before we have that all built out with the budget we have now? Those Russ?
So we'll never build out all the sidewalk on every street in the city that doesn't have sidewalk with the current resources we have. We're not coming close to that. So
If we put this 1.3 million towards that, how much sooner would that be done?
well, I don't really have the sidewalk numbers in front of me right now, but it's still a huge, long time. I mean, there are lots of streets that don't have sidewalk.
Correct.
Now, we have made a good dent in all of the, in the streets on the school routes that didn't have sidewalk, but, we're not there yet on all of those either.
Mm-mm.
Let me ask you this. So we have some that are rather narrow. Just to the south of City Hall, there's a neighborhood without sidewalks. And where my hometown is, a lot of those streets don't have any sidewalks, but the streets are quite narrow. Are they on our list as needing and going to someday in the future get sidewalks, or are they not? Because we'd have to buy and encroach into everybody's yard to do that. Are there some streets that by design will just leave without sidewalks because that's the nature of the neighborhood?
So we have a list that we've made that's actually getting kind of old now, but what we did is identified school walking routes that didn't have sidewalks. And that's what we've been focusing on. We have not focused on areas like my hometown where they don't have any sidewalks at all. So I don't even have that number. We can get it quickly, but I don't have that number that I could tell you right now how much sidewalk there is, but there's an awful lot of sidewalk that, of areas that don't have sidewalk. Now, to the question of the right of way, most of these areas, the county did require dedication of the right of way. And in my hometown, the Hillsdale neighborhood, the right of way is there. So we would not have to buy right of way, but there's, people have encroached out into the right of way with fences or, plantings, just to make their yard look nice. So, to try to go back in those areas and install sidewalks and then restore their yards and their fences and their landscaping and their sprinkling systems gets very, very expensive.
Okay, so they just think it's their yard. It's actually our right of way.
Right.
But when we're talking about, we have a certain amount of money to build out sidewalks, we're slowly moving in that direction. We're really talking then just about these school routes that have been identified.
Yes.
Okay.
So Russ, the goal is to put street lights on every street. If you don't have sidewalk, curb and gutter there, you're going to just dig it up to put the sidewalk, curb and gutter in the future. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. Which do we really want to do first? And do we want to put street lights where we're going to have to put sidewalk later? Or are we just going to be digging it up again and costing ourselves more money?
Well, the streetlights go in the park strip and the sidewalk, goes behind those. So I don't really think that's a huge additional expense. But the question is whether sidewalks are more important than streetlights that's up to you folks.
Yeah, well, and we're going to have the same problem possibly where they've got their fence out there where you want to put the street light. I see the same problems being as a sidewalk as the street light, as far as if their sprinkling system is right where you're going to put it, their fence.
Yeah, we have street lights in all the residential areas, I mean, some
Okay.
don't have this, as much lighting as we would like, but the areas that have zero lighting are all commercial areas.
Okay, thank you. That's good to
Yeah,
know.
sorry, I should have clarified that before.
That's
think it's-
okay.
120 lights that were needed to finish the build out, right?
Right, right.
So that's not, most of the lights are there. It's more about maintenance, replacement, repair, that kind of, as our lights are now suddenly got 30 years older when we didn't age a bit.
I haven't gotten any older. I don't know what happened to all my hair, but otherwise I'm still the same guy.
So with 3 employees, they're going to be able to do enough work to get the $1.3 million worth of work done every single year?
Well, not by themselves. So the major repairs and the new installations are all going to have to be contracted. So basically one of those employees, I mean, 2 of those employees would be doing their normal repairs. The third is going to have to manage a contract, contractors installing new lights. So, he will have some time to continue to help with, the stuff that we're doing right now, but a lot of his time will be consumed, or we'll have to have, our engineering division put out contracts for those installation of those new lights. So no, we can't spend all that money with 3 guys. We will have to hire contractors.
So with the contract labor, how many years? Are you really thinking 30 years to get all of that done, or 5 years and we'll be caught up and then we'll just have the $1 million worth every year after that?
Well, if we only have $500,000 to spend on replacements, it's well over 30 years.
So you think you'll need the 1.3 million every year for 30 years to get us caught up? To get us there?
More than that, really. So this is really just a start. I mean, $500,000 a year, every year for capital, for replacements and major repairs is going to take over 30 years easily.
But with the 1.3 million every year,
Well, the 1.3 million doesn't go all to capital. It's 800,000 of that is going to go to operations and maintenance, and only $500,000 to capital.
so it'll take us 800,000 a year just to maintain all these streetlights?
Yep, and
Okay.
and power.
Well, the power cost was only like 133,000. Is that what your pie chart showed? Or did I misread it?
No, I think you're right. It's not a huge amount, especially with the LEDs in there, but that's after installation of the LED system.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to get it's a lot of money. It seems like a lot. To say $30 million just to have our streetlights, if it's going to take 30 years. That's why it's just kind of overwhelming to think that it's really going to cost that much for that long.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, that's why we're proposing only a modest $3 per month fee and not a $4 or $5. I mean, because we could spend that much money. Honestly, we were paying Rocky Mountain Power 1.1 or a little over $1 million. It wasn't 1.1. It was just a little over $1 million a year every year. And, since then our budget's only been $500,000. I mean, we probably, that was 2009 when we were in a bad situation. But even in that $500,000, it would have been nice to keep that in street lighting and continue to replace that. But, for 20 years, we haven't done that. And we're in a situation where we're falling further and further behind. So it's not so much, it's going to have to be done at some point. And, whether that's now or later is really the question for the council.
So we had that $1 million we were paying to Rocky Mountain. Plus $500,000,
No,
plus $1 million, that was both. That was
Right.
everything, and then
That
we
was
just
everything.
scaled it back. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Willardson? Looks like we have the mayor online or getting online. Are you with us now, Mayor?
No, I just wanted to try and catch a little bit of the end. I'll update the council later on the meeting I was in, so.
Okay, we are just on item 7A. We've been receiving the communication street lighting fee.
Yes.
So-
So at this point, I don't have any questions, but thank you. And Steve, why don't you just finish out the meeting?
Okay, I'll do that, Mayor. It's your pleasure. So Wayne, on this item then, what do you need from us? Will we be looking at some sort of a resolution in the future? We only have 5 of us here tonight to kind of give any kind of split decision or direction as to go ahead. What do you need from us?
Thanks, sir. Yeah, really, we're bringing this item to you for sort of a first blush and consideration. Like Russ said, we're starting to be in a situation where we're going to have to do something about choices here on maintaining this system or letting it go. It's not critical yet. It'll start to worsen as we go along here. I can't remember what the total number of the lights we have in the whole system. Russ, what is it, like 8,000, 9,000?
7,500, yeah.
7,500. And as you saw, there's only like 97 of them that are out right now, and we're short about 100 that we need to replace. But as these fiberglass poles start to fray and crack, and you can see the paint issues we were talking about, and especially where the actual lighting itself is out with the wiring shorts and that sort of thing. You know, we're going to have to start doing something about this pretty soon. The 491,000 that we have allows us to kind of limp along and do emergency repairs, that sort of thing. But it's not going to allow us to fix this system. We did sort of we've kind of milked all of the lifespan out of this system. You saw part of that. We cut back on the maintenance when we had short-term operational needs back after the financial crisis. Have never come back and replaced them because we have been able to limp along, or haven't proposed to replace that money because we've been able to really still sort of remain stable. But that time is going to come to an end here pretty soon. And pretty soon isn't this year or next year, but within a few years, you're going to start seeing an acceleration of these poles that we're either going to have to remove or leave dark or whatever without some further funding to this. So our request right now is really just from a general feel standpoint of the council. Do you want us to move forward and come back with that proposal to increase the monthly fee, or do you want us to leave it alone for now? That's really the bottom line question.
I think that without maybe comparing it to everything else, streetlights are important. I think that streetlights that are out for significant periods of time probably is worse for our image as a city and for our residents than not having a street light there. And so I appreciate that some thought was put into how we can get back on top of this aging infrastructure. And for my part, I think we ought to go forward with some plan as to address it.
If we don't have any strong feeling about it, Mr. Bueller, what we will do is just go back and we'll wait a few months, maybe 12 months or so, and then we'll come back and pose the question again as time marches on.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good discussion for strategic plan next year.
I think we
Mayor
could.
Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
you know, one of the things that really worries me about it is we're shorting out some of these streetlights into the ground. We can't find the short. That means we're still running power through that wire. And I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of panic about digging into a live wire when I'm digging up something in my yard.
Oh, I was thinking that's how you find the short. You look for the guy with his hair standing on end and the shovel in it.
Yeah. So I'd like to see something going on with it. You know, we've got to do something with that because they wouldn't allow me to wire my house without conduit.
I don't know. My house, from my service to my house was direct buried cable until this year.
Yeah. That's what I say, but they won't allow us to do it inside the house.
Right. Okay, so if we're not going to see it for a few months, we certainly could discuss it at our strategic planning meeting, and at that time, maybe look at it in comparison to some other things. But I think, you know, on your timetable, Wayne, you could also go ahead with things. I told Mr. Willardson we expect him to stay on the job until his work's done. And that could be many years down the road.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, might I ask a question or two of
Please.
you? So the proposal is that we put this off for a few months?
Well, Wayne's proposal was that we don't need to act on it immediately, that he would bring it back in a few months to several months.
Given that we have two council members not in attendance, I don't know if that might change the dynamic any. Should we have a brief revisit next week when we have all our council members present?
Can we do that, Mr. Pyle?
For sure. Yes, absolutely.
If we can fit that into the agenda, let's take a look at that again next week, and maybe we can decide a little bit or have a little bit more clarity which direction we'll be going from all of us.
Yeah. And that'll give me a chance to have some discussion too. I missed most of the discussion. Now, I'll go back and listen to your comments and everything so that I'm up to speed as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next item on our agenda is the council calendar. Any items there or questions about that? Okay, we'll move on to the council for any potential future agenda items.
Mayor Pro Tem Bueller, I have an item if nobody else does.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring back the question that we discussed 2 weeks ago and ask if the council has any further direction for us on the Veterans Memorial proposal that we made, whereas we would use the money that the mayor has secured, front $500,000 from the city, and then use that to go after and try to re-secure commitments that have been made by other parties to match that 500. That would give us approximately enough to finish that project as proposed, or to move forward and complete that project as proposed.
One question I have is to be able to move forward with it after this first $1 million phase. How long before we could build the building and do the other items to make it a complete project?
It would take however long any fundraising effort or another responsible party, which could include anybody from, you could assign that to us as a staff, just like any other infrastructure project. The mayor may have some more comment on that in terms of continuing efforts later on through the years, or you could construct some sort of other funding entity to put it together. But the answer to your question is all dependent on that. We don't have more money than that. We would have to go raise it.
Thank you.
So you'll be putting this on the agenda then as a future item, or you needed some direction from us today, or?
Yeah, I was just hoping for some direction today. If I have the direction to go ahead, then yes, we'll be bringing to you future agenda items like contracts, just like any other building construction sort of a project.
Okay. So from my memory, I thought we were going ahead with it. We've been going ahead with it incrementally for quite a while. And now I've come to a design or an overview phase, and we have the money to spend to build the first phase. I don't know why we would not be going ahead with it, but others might have different opinion on that.
Yeah, the question for us from a staff standpoint is we don't have the money. We have 300,000 of the money, and we have prior commitments to people that kind of got stalled by the pandemic year, such as from the county and some other entities the mayor was able to work towards. But that's why we're here for the continuing support, I guess, or direction from the council, because we're asking for the city to put up $500,000 of that cost, and then we would be asking the mayor to go to the entities that have made commitments previously, and or see if we could pry some money out of the county if their budgeting timeframe has loosened up now that we're a year into this pandemic situation.
Do I understand that we could still say, yes, the city can put in $500,000, and then if those funds do not come about, then we would have to scrap it anyway? Or would that mean the city would have to put in more?
No, we would have
Or
to, we would,
to cut.
yeah, great question. We would have to stop it because the 800,000 won't do the design as we present it to you.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
just so that you're aware, part of the reason I phased it was because I will not spend money that we don't have. In other words, there will be no contracts, there will be no work done from my viewpoint unless the money is there already. In other words, there is no way that I would try and commit the city to spend money if we haven't already publicly and knowingly and with full disclosure raised money for that. What the county did is there was some money approved, but because the source of those funds from like car rental agencies and so forth, there was a 60% reduction in revenues. And so they tried to put everything on hold that they could, which included this. What their statement was, they can't guarantee it, but they say that priority will be given to those projects, not just ours, but to others, that they will look at, funding those once that revenue stream is back to its original position. And we will look at that based upon donations and say, once we have the commitments and then the funding, we will say, can we do the whole project, or do we take now a second phase with the funds that are there? And, this may take several years to finish. In fact, actually, my belief is that even once the buildings are built, that monumentation and other things will continue over probably the next decade, as smaller groups step forward to contribute in some way for some of the things that are going on there. So no.
Thank you for that.
No commitment beyond what's here.
Okay.
I might add, oops. Oh yeah, I guess I wasn't on mute. I might add also, the only urgency we really have here on the decision is if we are going to build anything in this construction season, we need to get moving along. We can still sort of take these decisions as they go, try to raise the 1.5 through other sources, that sort of thing, but we won't be able to build in this year if we do that.
And by the way, that's a strategic decision as well. It will be easier to raise funds for a building when they see that something is already there and that, success breeds success. Having raised money now, it will raise more in the future. So. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And also, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything further.
Okay. So any other potential future agenda items? And we'll turn to the council for any council reports. Okay. We have.
Steve, I'm trying to make one, but I'm trying to get my unmute off.
Okay.
Met with the municipal councils today, and they had a report from GOED, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. GOED pointed out that this morning in U.S. News and World Report, Utah has the #1 economic plan in the nation right now. We're of the top 10 states, we're #1. And so, we're moving along and staying on top of things. And then they also mentioned that part of the legislature this year was to change the name of GOED to the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And that goes along with their plan to focus a little more inward on Utah businesses and things like that that are actually here, and help build them and help build the entrepreneurship within Utah, rather than just trying to go out and recruit people to come in and bring a lot of new people in and that. So I think it looks like they're going to be focusing a lot more inwardly and improving the state as we go. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports? Okay, it looks like we have a special redevelopment agency meeting coming up and an agenda to review. Who's going to inform us on this, Mr. Pop?
I'll introduce the item. This is a little bit unusual in that it's not an economic development type project that we're proposing, but it does fall within the RDA's jurisdiction because of property ownership. And I'm going to have Mr. Willardson speak to that. We have a water easement that we are proposing to grant to Granger Hunter Water Improvement District. Russ, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot more to add to that, but Granger Hunter is running a new water line down 33rd South, and right at the intersection of 12th West and 3300 South, the line jogs a little bit to the south and crosses property owned by the RDA, and they're asking for an easement from the city for that, for construction of that water line.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward then. And that water line is not going to cause us any problems.
No, it's actually right on the edge of the property. So no, it wouldn't impact the development of that property at all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council on that item? Okay, any need for a closed session, Mr. File or anybody else?
No, sir, not from us.
Okay, looks like we have completed our business for tonight, unless there's something I missed or anybody else has something to bring up. We could go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We've got two motions to adjourn. Without objection, then we will stand adjourned and we will reconvene in our city council meeting